In a vibrant city deep within Nigeria, there lived a man named Chief Emeka, known for his vast wealth and influence. Chief Emeka was a man of great means, with sprawling estates, luxury cars, and the respect of all who knew him. Yet, despite all his wealth, his heart ached with a sorrow that could never be healed. His beloved wife, Amora, had passed away many years ago, leaving him alone to raise their only son, Chike. From a young age, Chike had been the light of Chief Emeka's life, and the grieving widower did everything in his power to ensure his son never lacked anything. As Chike grew, he displayed little interest in academics. His mind wandered in class, his grades were poor, and his teachers often despaired at his lack of focus. But Chief Emeka, determined to see his son succeed, used his influence and wealth to ensure that Chike passed his exams. Bribing teachers and officials became a routine part of his efforts to pave the way for Chike's future, even if it meant bending the rules. Chief Emeka's love for his son blinded him to the potential consequences of his actions. Chike, oblivious to the sacrifices his father was making, continued to drift through life with little concern for his studies. He was charismatic, popular among his peers, and more interested in parties and girls than in his schoolwork. Yet, despite his carefree attitude, a seed of ambition was planted in Chike's heart by the dreams his father had for him. Little did he know, this seed would soon grow into something far more complex than either he or his father could have imagined. When Chike entered university, his reputation preceded him. Known as the son of one of the wealthiest men in the city, he quickly found himself surrounded by people eager to be associated with his status. He thrived in this environment, attending lavish parties, spending money freely, and enjoying the attention of numerous women. Yet, amidst the superficial pleasures, he felt an inexplicable void that no amount of partying or companionship could fill. One day, while walking through the university campus, Chike's eyes fell upon a girl he had never seen before. She was not like the other girls who fawned over him or sought his attention. Her beauty was understated, and she carried herself with a quiet dignity that intrigued him. Her name was Edeora, and she had come from a small, impoverished village with a single-minded determination to succeed in her studies. Adeora's father, a humble farmer, had sacrificed everything to send her to university, hoping that she would one day lift her family out of poverty. She was focused, disciplined, and had no time for distractions. Yet, Chike was determined to make her notice him. He approached her, flashing his most charming smile, but Edeora simply looked at him, her expression unreadable, and walked away without saying a word. For the first time in his life, Chike was at a loss. No one had ever dismissed him so easily, and it only made him more determined to win her over. He began to search for her everywhere on campus, asking about her, trying to learn more about this mysterious girl who had captured his attention so completely. It wasn't long before his persistence paid off, and Edeora, intrigued by his unusual interest in her, agreed to speak with him. As Chike and Edeora began to spend more time together, a strange bond formed between them. Chike, for all his wealth and privilege, found himself drawn to Adeora's strength and resilience. She, in turn, was surprised by the depth of Chike's character beneath his carefree exterior. Slowly, they grew closer, and Chike began to change in ways he never expected. Adeora's influence on Chike was profound. She encouraged him to take his studies more seriously, to think about his future, and to be mindful of the people around him. Under her guidance, he began to see the world through a different lens, and for the first time, he questioned the path his life had taken. But as they grew closer, Edeora found herself slipping into Chike's world of parties and distractions. Despite her best efforts to remain focused, her grades began to suffer. The girl who had once been the pride of her village started to lose her way. The pressure of balancing her relationship with Chike and her academic responsibilities became too much, and she made choices that would haunt her for years to come. As Adeora's grades continued to drop, she found herself in a spiral of despair. The once brilliant student was now struggling to keep up with her coursework, and the stress began to take a toll on her health. When she discovered she was pregnant, the shock was overwhelming. She knew that her family's hopes rested on her success, and the thought of disappointing them was unbearable. Desperate and afraid, Edeora made the difficult decision to terminate the pregnancy. She did so in secret, not telling Chike, and tried to bury her guilt and sadness deep within her. But the weight of her choices bore down on her, and soon she found herself in the same situation again. After multiple pregnancies and terminations, her health deteriorated, and the doctor finally gave her devastating news: she could no longer have children. Edeora was shattered. She couldn't bring herself to tell Chike, fearing his reaction. She hid the doctor's letter, determined to keep the truth from him, even as the burden of her secret grew heavier each day. Despite her inner turmoil, she continued to push Chike towards a future together, urging him to introduce her to his father and talk about marriage. The day finally came when Chike decided to introduce Edeora to his father. Chief Emeka was much older now, his once sharp mind dulled by the onset of dementia. He often confused the past with the present, and memories of his late wife, Amora, frequently surfaced in his conversations. When Chike mentioned Edeora's name to his father, Chief Emeka's eyes lit up with a strange mixture of joy and confusion. He mistook Edeora for his late wife, whose name she shared, and embraced her warmly, tears streaming down his face. "My Amora," Chief Emeka whispered, "you've come back to me." Edeora, taken aback, stood frozen as Chief Emeka held her close, overwhelmed by his emotions. Chike, realizing what was happening, gently tried to explain the mistake, but his father was lost in his memories, unable to differentiate between past and present. After a few minutes, Chief Emeka's mind cleared, and he apologized profusely to Edeora, explaining how he had mistaken her for his late wife. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, the meeting ended on a positive note, with Chief Emeka giving his blessing to the young couple. But beneath the surface, both Chike and Edeora were troubled. Edeora by the secret she was keeping, and Chike by the strange encounter with his father, which left him feeling unsettled. Neither could have imagined the storm that was about to break over their lives. As the days passed, Chike and Edeora continued to plan their future together. They graduated from university, although their grades were far from impressive. Still, Chike's wealth ensured they could live comfortably, and they soon found a house in the city where they planned to start their life together. They were weeks away from their wedding day, and everything seemed to be falling into place. But one evening, as Chike was searching for some important papers, he stumbled across something unexpected, a letter from a doctor, addressed to Edeora. Curious, he opened it, and as he read the contents, his world came crashing down. The letter detailed the procedure Edeora had undergone and the devastating news that she could no longer have children. Chike was shocked. He couldn't believe that Edeora had kept something so important from him. Anger, confusion, and fear swelled inside him as he tried to process what he had just learned. He knew he should confront her, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he retreated into himself, trying to make sense of the future he had envisioned and the harsh reality he now faced. As the wedding day approached, Chike's mind was in turmoil. On the day of the ceremony, with the church filled with guests and Edeora waiting in her wedding dress, Chike was nowhere to be found. He had vanished, unable to face the woman he loved, tormented by the fear of never having children of his own. Edeora waited in the church for hours, her heart sinking with each passing minute. She couldn't understand why Chike hadn't shown up. As the realization dawned that he wasn't coming, her heart broke. The guests began to leave, whispering amongst themselves, and Edeora was left alone, dressed in her wedding gown, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't comprehend why Chike had abandoned her. The pain of his betrayal cut deep, and she felt a fury unlike anything she had ever known. She had sacrificed so much for him, changed her life for him, and now he had left her in the most humiliating way possible. With a heavy heart, she returned to her village, seeking solace in the arms of her father, who was devastated by what had happened to his daughter. But as the days passed, Adora's sadness turned into a burning desire for revenge. She couldn't let Chike get away with what he had done to her. She vowed to make him pay for the pain he had caused and for the dreams he had shattered. And in the depths of her heart, a plan began to form, a plan that would change both their lives forever. As Edeora returned to the village, her father, seeing the pain in his daughter's eyes, tried to console her. He knew how much she had sacrificed to be with Chike, and the news of her abandonment filled him with sorrow and anger. Edeora, however, kept her thoughts to herself, quietly harboring her growing resentment. The village was abuzz with the news of what had happened, and Edeora couldn't escape the pitying looks and whispered conversations. But instead of letting it break her, she used the pain to fuel her desire for revenge. She knew that the key to her plan lay in Chike's father, Chief Emeka. His dementia had left him vulnerable, and Edeora realized she could exploit this weakness to her advantage. She began to visit Chief Emeka regularly, presenting herself as the loving figure he had confused with his late wife. Each time she visited, she reinforced this belief, pretending to be Amora returned from the dead. Chief Emeka, lost in his fading memories, was overjoyed to have his wife back, and he welcomed Edeora into his home with open arms. As their relationship deepened, Edeora began to manipulate Chief Emeka, slowly gaining his trust and convincing him to change his will. The once sharp businessman was now easily influenced, and under Edeora's guidance, he signed documents that transferred all his wealth and properties to her, leaving Chike with nothing. Weeks passed, and Edeora and Chief Emeka continued their strange, unsettling relationship. The more time Edeora spent with him, the more she became consumed by her plan for revenge. She knew what she was doing was wrong, but the thought of making Chike suffer as she had kept her moving forward. One day, Chike decided to visit his father, hoping to find some peace and clarity after the turmoil of the past few weeks. As he entered the house, he was shocked to find Edeora there, acting as if she were his father's wife. The sight of her infuriated him, and he confronted her, demanding to know what she was doing in his father's home. A heated argument ensued, with both Chike and Edeora hurling accusations and insults at each other. In the midst of the chaos, Chief Emeka, confused and frightened, tried to intervene. But in the struggle, he was accidentally pushed, causing him to fall and hit his head on the floor. The room fell silent as Chike and Edeora rushed to his side, but it was too late. Chief Emeka was pronounced dead at the hospital, and the guilt of his death weighed heavily on both of them. The days following Chief Emeka's death were filled with grief and confusion. The funeral was a somber affair, with friends and family gathering to pay their respects. Chike, devastated by the loss of his father, was barely able to process the events that had led to this tragedy. His anger towards Edeora only deepened, and he struggled to understand how everything had gone so wrong. At the burial, Edeora approached Chike and his new wife with a cold smile. "Everything your father owned now belongs to me," she whispered, the words dripping with malice. Chike stared at her in disbelief, refusing to believe what she was saying. But when he visited his father's lawyer, the truth was laid bare. The will had been changed, and Chike's name was nowhere to be found. In a matter of days, Chike's world was turned upside down. The wealth and comfort he had taken for granted were stripped away, leaving him and his wife homeless and destitute. The house his father had bought for him was now in Edeora's name, and with no other options, Chike and his wife were forced to beg on the streets to survive. As Chike and his wife, Neka, adjusted to their new life on the streets, the reality of their situation began to sink in. The days of luxury and privilege were long gone, replaced by the harshness of poverty and the struggle to survive. Chike, once a carefree young man, was now burdened by the weight of his mistakes and the consequences of his actions. Neka, who had married Chike out of love, stood by him despite their circumstances. She encouraged him to stay strong and not lose hope even as they faced hunger and hardship. Together, they navigated the challenges of their new life, finding solace in each other's company and drawing strength from their shared struggles. But as time passed, Chike couldn't shake the guilt and regret that haunted him. He knew he had brought this upon himself and his wife, and he couldn't help but wonder if he would ever find redemption. The bitterness of Adeora's revenge had left him with nothing, and he struggled to see a way out of the darkness that had enveloped his life. One day, as Chike and Nneka were begging on the streets, they were approached by an elderly man named Baba Ibeji. He was a well-known figure in the city, a wise and respected elder who had helped many people in need. Baba Ibeji had heard of Chike's plight and had come to offer his assistance. Life has a way of teaching us lessons in the most unexpected ways, Baba Ibeji said, his voice gentle but firm. You have made mistakes, but that does not mean you are beyond redemption. There is still hope for you, Chike. But you must be willing to change and work hard to rebuild your life. Chike listened intently, his heart filled with a mixture of hope and fear. He knew that Baba Ibeji was right, and that the only way forward was to confront his past and make amends for his mistakes. With Baba Ibeji's guidance, Chike began to take small steps towards rebuilding his life, determined to prove that he was capable of change. With Baba Ibeji's help, Chike found work as a laborer, doing menial jobs to earn a living. It was hard, backbreaking work, and Chike often came home exhausted and discouraged. But Nneka was always there to lift his spirits, reminding him that they were on this journey together and that they would get through it. As the weeks turned into months, Chike slowly began to regain a sense of purpose. He worked tirelessly, saving every penny he could, determined to one day provide a better life for Nneka. Despite the hardships, there was a growing sense of hope between them, a belief that they could overcome the obstacles in their path. Baba Ibeji continued to mentor Chike, offering him wisdom and guidance along the way. He taught Chike the importance of humility, hard work, and integrity, qualities that Chike had once taken for granted. Under Baba Ibeji's tutelage, Chike began to see the world differently, understanding the value of the things he had once overlooked. Months passed, and Chike's life began to improve. He had saved enough money to rent a small room for himself and Nneka, and they no longer had to beg on the streets. It was a modest beginning, but it was a start, and Chike was grateful for the progress they had made. One day, while walking through the market, Chike unexpectedly ran into Adeora. She was shopping, dressed in fine clothes, and surrounded by people who treated her with the respect due to someone of wealth and status. When she saw Chike, a look of surprise crossed her face, followed by a cold smile. Well, look who it is, Adeora said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I see you finally learned what it means to struggle. Chike felt a surge of anger but quickly suppressed it. He knew that reacting in anger would only give Adeora the satisfaction she sought. Instead, he calmly replied, yes, I've learned a lot since we last met. But I'm working hard to change, and that's all that matters. Adeora's smile faltered slightly, as if she hadn't expected Chike's measured response. But she quickly recovered and turned away, dismissing him with a wave of her hand. As she walked away, Chike couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for the way things had turned out between them. But he also knew that he had to focus on his own journey and leave the past behind. Chike's encounter with Adeora left him feeling unsettled, but it also strengthened his resolve to continue rebuilding his life. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but he was determined to keep moving forward, no matter the challenges. One day, while working at a construction site, Chike overheard some of the workers talking about a new business opportunity in the city. A wealthy businessman was looking for reliable people to help him start a new venture, and he was offering good pay and the chance to advance quickly. Chike was intrigued. He had been looking for a way to improve his situation, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity. He approached the workers and asked for more information, and they directed him to the businessman's office. The next day, Chike went to the office and met with the businessman, a man named Mr. Adeola. Impressed by Chike's determination and work ethic, Mr. Adeola offered him a position in the new venture. Chike accepted the offer with gratitude, knowing that this could be the break he had been waiting for. Chike's new job marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. He threw himself into his work, determined to prove himself and make the most of the opportunity he had been given. The job was demanding, but Chike was up to the challenge, and he quickly earned the respect of his colleagues and superiors. As Chike's career began to flourish, he and Nneka were able to move into a better home, and their financial situation steadily improved. Chike felt a deep sense of pride in the progress he had made, and he was grateful for the second chance he had been given. Despite his success, Chike never forgot the lessons he had learned during his time on the streets. He remained humble and focused, always striving to do better and to live up to the values that Baba Ibeji had instilled in him. As Chike's life continued to improve, Adeora's fortunes began to decline. The wealth she had gained through her deception had brought her temporary happiness, but it had also made her a target for those who sought to take advantage of her. She found herself surrounded by people who were only interested in her money, and she soon began to feel the emptiness of her life. One day, Adeora received news that Chike had become successful and was now a respected businessman in the city. The news filled her with a mixture of envy and regret. She realized that despite everything she had done to destroy him, Chike had managed to rise above it and build a new life for himself. Driven by curiosity and a lingering sense of unfinished business, Adeora decided to visit Chike. When she arrived at his office, she was struck by how much he had changed. The once arrogant boy had become a confident and respectable man, and Adeora couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for the way she had treated him. When Adeora walked into Chike's office, he was surprised to see her. It had been years since they had last seen each other, and the sight of her brought back a flood of memories, both good and bad. Chike greeted her politely, but there was a distance in his voice that hadn't been there before. Adeora, sensing the change in him, felt a twinge of guilt. She had come to confront him, but now that she was standing in front of him, she found herself at a loss for words. Finally, she spoke, her voice hesitant. "Chike, I came to see how you're doing. I heard you've become successful." Chike nodded, his expression unreadable. "Yes, things have been going well. I've worked hard to get here." There was an awkward silence as Adeora struggled to find the right words. She had expected to feel satisfaction in seeing Chike, but instead, she felt a deep sense of loss. The revenge she had sought had brought her nothing but emptiness, and she realized that she had lost something far more valuable than money. "I'm sorry," Adeora finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for everything I did to you." Chike looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of emotions. After a moment, he sighed and said, "Adeora, I've moved on. I don't hold any grudges against you, but I think it's best that we leave the past where it belongs." Adeora left Chike's office feeling more conflicted than ever. She had come seeking closure, but instead, she found herself grappling with the weight of her own mistakes. The realization that Chike had moved on and found happiness without her left her feeling hollow. As she walked through the bustling streets of the city, Adeora reflected on the choices she had made and the path she had taken. The revenge she had sought had only brought her pain, and now she was left with nothing but regrets. Back in her lavish home, Adeora felt the emptiness of her surroundings. The wealth she had once coveted now seemed meaningless, and she longed for something more, something real. She realized that in her pursuit of revenge, she had lost sight of what truly mattered. Determined to find a way to make amends, Adeora began to think about how she could turn her life around. She knew that it wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to do whatever it took to find peace and redemption. In the weeks that followed, Adeora began to make changes in her life. She donated a large portion of her wealth to charity, using the money to support education and healthcare initiatives in her community. She also reached out to the people she had wronged in the past, offering her apologies and seeking to make amends. Through her efforts, Edeora began to find a sense of purpose that had been missing from her life. She discovered the joy of helping others and the satisfaction that came from making a positive difference in the world. The bitterness and anger that had once consumed her gradually gave way to a feeling of inner peace. Despite the progress she was making, Edeora knew that there was one more thing she needed to do. She had to face Chike one last time and ask for his forgiveness, not for his sake, but for her own. Edeora reached out to Chike, asking if they could meet one last time. To her surprise, he agreed. They met at a quiet cafe in the city, away from the hustle and bustle of their busy lives. As they sat across from each other, Edeora took a deep breath and began to speak. Chike, I know I've caused you a lot of pain, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I've been trying to make things right, and I wanted to apologize to you in person. Chike listened quietly, his expression thoughtful. When she finished speaking, he nodded and said, Edeora, I appreciate your apology. I've made my peace with what happened, and I've moved on. I hope you can do the same. Edeora felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had expected anger or resentment, but instead, Chike's words were filled with understanding and compassion. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of closure. As they parted ways, Edeora realized that the burden she had been carrying for so long had finally lifted. She was ready to move forward with her life, free from the pain and bitterness of the past. Chike found happiness in his new life. He and Neka continued to build their life together, growing stronger as a couple with each passing day. The trials they had faced had brought them closer.